"No one has a right, sir, to give orders that are contrary in spirit to the regulations and customs of the service," answered the commander with proper austerity. "Mr. Wilkins," he continued, as the burly quartermaster came bursting in, "have the other troopers sent to report at once to me, and let this man wait outside till I am ready to see him." As it happened that a dozen members of the garrison gathered from the lips of a participant stirring particulars of a spirited chase and fight that set soldiers to cheering and women and children to extravagant scenes of rejoicing before the official head of the garrison was fairly ready to give out the news, Kennedy had taken satisfaction for the commander's slights by telling the tidings broadcast to the crowd that quickly gathered, and in 3 minutes the word was flying from lip to lip that the troops had run down Lame Wolf's main village after an all-day, all-night rush to head them off, and that with very small loss they had been able to capture many of the families and to scatter the warriors among the hills. In brief, while Henry with the main body had followed the trail of the fighting band, Webb had been detached and with 2 squadrons had ridden hard after a Shoshone guide who led them by a short cut through the range and enabled them to pounce on the village, where were most of Lame Wolf's non-combatants, guarded only by a small party of warriors. While Captains Billings and Ray with their troops remained in charge of these captives, Webb with Blake and the others had pushed on in pursuit of certain braves who had scampered into the thick of the hills, carrying a few of the wounded and prisoners with them. Among those captured or recaptured were Mr. Hay and Crapaud. Among those who had been spirited away was Nanette Flower. This seemed strange and uncomfortable. And yet Blake had found time to write to his winsome wife, to send her an important missive and a most important bit of news. It was with these she came running to Mrs. Ray, before the latter had time to half read the long letter received from her soldier husband. And we take the facts in the order of the revelation. "Think of it, Matty," she cried. "Think of it. Gerald's first words almost are, 'Take good care of that pouch and contents.' And now pouch and contents are gone. Who ever dreamed that they would be of such consequence? He says the newspaper will explain." And eventually the 2 bony heads were bent over the big sheets of a dingy, grimy copy of a Philadelphia daily. And there, on an inner page, heavily marked, appeared a strange item. And this Quaker City journal had been picked up in an Ogallala camp. The item read as follows: "An untamed Sioux. The authorities of the Carlisle School and the police of Harrisburg are hunting high and low for a young Indian, known to the records of the Academy as Ralph Moreau, but born on the payrolls of Buffalo Bill's Wide West aggregation as Eagle Wing, a youth who is credited with having given the renowned scout showman more trouble than all his braves, broncos, and busters thereof combined. Being of superb physique and a daring horseman, Moreau had been forgiven many a peccadillo, and had followed the fortunes of the show 2 consecutive summers until Cody finally had to get rid of him as an intolerable nuisance. It seems that when a lad of 18, Eagle Wing had been sent to Carlisle, where he ran the gamut of scrapes of every conceivable kind. He spoke English, picked up about the agencies, had influential friends, and in some clandestine way received occasional supplies of money that enabled him to take French leave when he felt like it. He was sent back from Carlisle to Dakota as irreclaimable, and after a year or 2 on his native heath, reappeared among the haunts of civilization as one of Buffalo Bill's warriors. Bill discharged him at Cincinnati, and at the insistence of the Indian Bureau he was again placed at Carlisle, only to repeat on a larger scale his earlier exploits and secure a second transfer to the plains, where his opportunities for devilment were limited. Then Cody was induced to take him on again by profuse promises of good behavior, which were kept until Pennsylvania soil was reached 2 weeks ago, when he broke loose again, was seen in store clothes around West Philadelphia for a few days, plentifully supplied with money, and next he turned up in the streets of Carlisle, where he assaulted an attaché of the school, whose life was barely saved by the prompt efforts of other Indian students. Moreau escaped to Harrisburg, which he proceeded to paint his favorite color that very night, and wound up the entertainment by galloping away on the horse of a prominent official who had essayed to escort him back to Carlisle. It is believed that he is now in hiding somewhere about the suburbs, and that an innate propensity for devilment will speedily betray him to the clutches of the law. A few moments after reading this oddly interesting story, the two friends were in consultation with Mrs. Dade, who in turn called in Dr. Waller, just returning from the hospital, and a not too satisfactory visit to Mr. Field. There had been a slight change for the better in the condition of General Field that had enabled Dr. Loring of Fort Russell and a local physician to arrange for his speedy transfer to Cheyenne. This had in a measure relieved the anxiety of Waller's patient, but never yet had the veteran practitioner permitted him to know that he was practically a prisoner as well as a patient. Waller feared the result on so high-strung a temperament, and had made young Field believe that when strong and well enough to attempt the journey, he should be sent to Rock Springs. Indeed, Dr. Waller had no intention of submitting to Major Flint's decision as final. He had written personally to the medical director of the department, acquainting him with the facts, and meanwhile had withdrawn himself as far as possible, officially and socially, from the limited circle in which moved his perturbed commanding officer. He was at a distant point of the garrison, therefore, and listening to the excited and vehement comments of the younger of the three women upon this strange newspaper story, and its possible connection with matters at Frayne, at the moment when a dramatic scene was being enacted over beyond the guard-house. Kennedy was still at the center of a little group of eager listeners when Pink Marble Factum of the trader's store came hurrying forth from the adjutant's office, speedily followed by Major Flint. "You may tell Mrs. Hay that while I cannot permit her to visit the prisoner," he called after the clerk, "I will send the girl over, under suitable guard." To this Mr. Marble merely shrugged his shoulders and went on. He fancied Flint no more than did the relics of the original garrison. A little later Flint personally gave an order to the sergeant of the guard, and then came commotion. First there were stifled sounds of scuffle from the interior of the guard-house, then shrill, wrathful screams, then a woman's voice, uplifted in wild upbraidings in an unknown tongue, at sound of which Trooper Kennedy dropped his rein and his jaw, stood staring 1 minute, then with the exclamation, "Mother of God! But I know that woman!" burst his way through the crowd and ran toward the old log blockhouse at the gate, the temporary post of the guard. Just as he turned the corner of the building, almost stumbling against the post commander, there came bursting forth from the dark interior a young woman of the Sioux, daring, furious, raging, and breaking loose from the grasp of the two luckless soldiers who had her by the arms. Away she darted down the road, still screaming like some infuriated child, and rushed straight for the open gateway of the Hays. Of course the guard hastened in pursuit, the major shouting, "Stop her! Catch her!" and the men striving to appear to obey, yet shirking the feat of seizing the fleeing woman. Fancy, then, the amaze of the swiftly following spectators when the trader's front door was thrown wide open and Mrs. Hays herself sprang forth. Another instant and the two women had met at the gate. Another instant still, and with one motherly arm twining around the quavering, panting, pleading girl, and straining her to the motherly heart, Mrs. Hays' right hand and arm flew up in the superb gesture known the wide frontier over as the Indian signal, "Halt!" And halt they did, every mother's son, save Kennedy, who sprang to the side of the girl and faced the men in blue. And then another woman's voice, rich, deep, ringing, powerful, fell on the ears of the amazed, swift-gathering throng with the marvelous order, "Stand where you are! You shan't touch a hair of her head. She's a chief's daughter. She's my own kin, and I'll answer for her to the general himself. As for you," she added, turning low and glaring straight at the astounded Flint, all the pent-up sense of wrath, indignity, shame, and wrong overmastering any thought of prudence or of the divinity that doth hedge the commanding officer, "as for you," she cried, "I pity